The significant outage of Microsoft yesterday, which disrupted services across the world. The outage extended beyond Microsoft's applications, impacting sectors such as aviation, security services, and banks. The disruption was linked to a conflict between Microsoft's software and the CrowdStrike Falcon sensor endpoint protections, where essentially the outage affected computers that were running the Falcon sensor, which came into conflict with Microsoft. After over 24 hours, it's now been clarified that an issue with the CrowdStrike cybersecurity software is what caused the global outage and nothing to do with Microsoft. Falcon is the CrowdStrike platform built to stop breaches via a unified set of cloud-delivered technologies that prevent all types of attacks, including malware and others. So you can imagine why certain sectors like banking and aviation were hit the hardest by this global tech outage. Airlines specifically rely heavily on softwares that run on Windows Microsoft. All their digitized services such as check-ins and boardings, it all depends on the systems working. Indigo Airlines, in fact, had to cancel every single flight yesterday after the outage. Many airports in India, including Delhi and Bangalore, however, have resumed normal operations as per reports that have come in. Several statements have also been made from both Microsoft and CrowdStrike, which claim that both companies are working to ensure that systems resume normal operations. However, a simple rollback of the faulty CrowdStrike software update may not help businesses that have been impacted, as the problem could possibly run much deeper in the computers and the systems. As per reports, the CrowdStrike software runs, like I said, deeper within the computer compared to your regular applications like your web browsers, because the whole point of the software is to detect cyber attacks. So while the world recovers from this technical glitch and shock, it really does beg us to ask important questions. Given our growing dependence on computer systems across professions, do we now need to encourage a made-in-India cloud system? Imagine this, viewers, if Apple can compete with Microsoft with its own versions of Windows line of operating systems, cloud computing platforms, and web browsers, is the possibility of an Indian competitor too remote? It's actually not. There are companies in India that seem to be ready to take on this challenge. Just a few weeks ago, Ola announced that it is shifting away from Google Maps and moving both of its cab services as well as the scooters to its in-house map service called Ola Maps. Ola co-founder Bhavish Aggarwal announced on X that they've spent 100 crores a year for using external map technologies, but they've brought that cost down to near nil by moving to their own in-house Ola Maps. In fact, in May 2024, Ola decided to move its entire workload out of Microsoft's cloud computing platform called Azure to the company's own platform, cloud platform called Crewtrim. So if there are companies within India that want to reduce their reliance and dependence on global tech giants with made-in-India solutions, what really then become the next big steps that we must take as a nation, that the government must take to ensure that this does not continue to be some remote possibility in our minds? I take this conversation forward. I have with me Dhruv Bhutani, who's a tech consultant. I also have with me Wing Commander S. Sudhakaran. We have with us Jayjeet Bhattacharya, and I have with me Kanish Kaur, digital and cyber security expert. Let me begin this conversation, if I can, with Dhruv Bhutani. Dhruv, what do you make of what has happened so far? And like I said, several statements have already been made by both Microsoft, CrowdStrike, several companies that are involved. They're coming together, they're trying to provide a solution. But I want to have a conversation about the future rather than continuing a discussion on what possibly went wrong and how we must secure ourselves from similar such software updates or cyber attacks in the future, to a larger conversation about, do we now need to consider that it is possible for India to put together resources to come up with its own systems? Because I've given an example of how Apple also had that dream. A man had that dream and he made it come true through Apple when they started competing with Microsoft, which continues to, of course, be the most dominant player in this market.
Aspects to that. It's not as straightforward as India just building out its own systems for the entirety of the internet.
Right,
The
absolutely.
internet is too interconnected. It doesn't work like that. Now, on one part, sure, there are a lot of components, so to speak, that we can build, and we are building. India is building. But at the end of the day, this was a software update gone wrong. Yes, it had widespread impact, but it was at the end of the day a software update gone wrong. Tomorrow, like if India is building for the world, now are you talking about India building its own, you know, inclusive system which is not going to be marketed to the world? Then that's a different scenario altogether. But situations like these do happen, and like of course, if India is building for the world and it is building for the world, such a scenario is once again, absolutely possible.
So there's no protection from it from your point of view. There's nothing that we can do.
Usually, I mean, see, there is always some sort of human error.
Right, absolutely.
There are multiple processes in place at all organizations to make sure that a bad software update does not go into production. But as we've seen time and time again, you can strengthen up those systems, but there's always like a 1% chance or a 0.1% chance that a developer will goof up, and that's just the nature of things. Of course, in this case, it's had a much bigger impact than anybody would want to let happen. And yeah, hopefully, CrowdStrike improves its internal processes. But I don't think this can be used as an impetus to build our own inclusive system, which is going to be India only.
Why would it be India only? That's what I'm saying. Why should it be India only?
Well, if it's from India to the world, and that is happening in many industries, for example, Zoho, well, that doesn't solve this problem. It was a bad software update, and that can happen even when India is building for the world.
Okay, all right. Wing Commander Sudhakaran, your thoughts?
To begin with, let's put the things in the right perspective. This is not just a software update going wrong. Yes, there was a bug, but then today we live in a world wherein there are clear-cut processes that are laid down. In mission-critical system, there is a clear CI/CD pipeline, right? It is a continuous integration, continuous deployment kind of an environment that we all live in 24/7. What has gone wrong here is there is a bug that was there in the update, which was probably not tested. And there is some criminal supervisory negligence that has happened, which probably in some hurry, because there is no hurry to push this update. It was not like heavens was falling down, or there was some attack that was happening, which was supposed to be immediately prevented, like some MI4 mission on some stopper time was, nothing of that sort was there. So somebody did goof up. And it is not one person who generally goofs up like this, because generally somebody like CrowdStrike, who is in charge of millions of systems across the world, they know what is the impact of each and every update. So there are responsible people. There is clearly some oversight in the laid down processes and protocol. That's about it. And it's a single point of failure somewhere in the system, which has gone either unnoticed or because somebody was busy somewhere. This has happened. So let us not stretch it too far. Now, I've been hearing from yesterday onwards, lot of self-styled pseudo experts coming on TV to say, we can do this, we can do that. Please, we can't do it. We can't start today. We have not started yesterday. We didn't start last month. We didn't start last year. For a good 20 years, we've been talking about developing an OS. We're nowhere near it. It is not a joke that we, today something failed and then we'll start it. Coming to platforms like Kritrim or Ola's Google Maps, they are very, very nascent. They are at a very nascent stage. If you today talk about rivaling Google Map, please understand Google has billions of Android systems that are lying on the road. That's what gives it real-time traffic update. Today, if Ola wants to develop it also, it will simply not be able to do it because it just simply doesn't have enough sensors on the road to give you indication of what is the real-time traffic statistics like. It can definitely say, how much distance will it take from going from point A to point B. But to give you a real-time compute, you need to really do much more than that, and I hope people really get that straight. The second point is about things like Kritram. You write an API into a GPT OpenAI and say that I built an LLM for India. You're fooling everybody big time. India needs to get out of this mindset of thinking that we can keep buying technology, we can keep see, we are not an IT superpower. We just give labors for the IT world, IT market. We need to get out of that mindset. We are still not a product economy as far as IT is concerned. We are a very service-oriented economy. We just give laborers for top-notch IT companies. We don't have an Apple with us. We don't have a Tesla with us. We don't have an Amazon with us. None of our IT bigs can actually match any of these guys. So to tell that,
So what's the reason for it, sir? I understand that we don't match it, but you look at Apple's trajectory as well, right? Like I said, it all started with one man.
Our environment is hostile.
And that's the conversation I want to have. That's the conversation I want to have. That what
doesn't have policies. It doesn't make policies. I'll tell you, there is a national contribution, 8,000 crores not spent. Last year they said 1 lakh crores not spent. No, if you're going to say, I'm going to allocate this much money, and that money is going to go into servicing of somebody's salary in the same DRDOs and in the same labs that actually produces zilch, we are not going to be anywhere. And I'll take this opportunity to warn this country. We are nowhere near the AGI race. The Niti Aayog document says that we will not even talk about AGI. They say that let's talk about ANI. ANI is not AI. Today, China, today, US, the top big companies have all invested more than 100 billion USD. Sam Altman goes on to say that I will burn 100 billion USD every year, come what may, till such time I find this pursuit. Where is the matching goal here in terms of commitment? Last 4 years, I've been warning this country that the social media narrative needs to be controlled, and nobody gave a damn. The 2024 elections, as per the disinformation lab report in Europe, they've clearly stated that were messed up with by foreign agents. Okay. And that is because the bigwigs play a certain psyops narrative using your social media. We are just all over the place. We talk big, we don't deliver as a nation. Because the reason is everybody Googles. At the end of the day, your gyan, my gyan, everybody's gyan comes out of Google, and Google knows how to shape your gyan. If your gyan is going to be shaped by Google, you cannot build technology. You need to build technology starting from scratch. Your foundations need to be right. Your education is messed up. Your science is messed up. Your technology is messed up. You are just preparing industrial era clones for a Western corporate, and that is what even the IITs are doing today. None of the IITs who come here who build big industries here, right? Okay, it's another matter that you cobble up two technologies, assemble it, aggregate it, and you say that I build 22 top level unicorns. But you look into their top line and bottom line, they're all in the negative. That is not how a robust technology-enabled, deep tech-enabled startup ecosystem is made. I've been shouting at the top of my voice to make the countrymen listen to this. But I think we want to live in a fairyland, believing stories which somebody else spins for us. And we can't build technologies like that. Technology is simply not built like that.
Okay, all right. Jayajit
Bhattacharya. To that point, again, absolutely.
Okay, Dhruv, I'll come to you in just a moment. Dhruv, I will come to you. Jayajit Bhattacharya, bringing you into the conversation as well. I just want to understand from you. As far as expenditure is concerned, Wing Commander Sudhakaran is absolutely right. We do make large announcements in every budget. In fact, in just a few days from now, we're expecting the next budget to also come out. And I'm sure there will be an allocation for the world of tech. Why do you think that we're not being able to break out of this mindset? What will it take? Because, see, we also have to understand that we have other larger socio-economic problems to also deal with. But that doesn't mean that we're not building the spacecrafts and the technology that goes and lands on the southern pole of the moon. So if we're able to do that, why is it that as far as the world of tech is concerned, we're not being able to move out of this mindset which Wing Commander Sudhakaran elaborated on, which is simply building labor for the tech world but not pushing innovation?
Ways in between. I think what Wing Commander Sudhakaran mentioned there is putting in or rather shaking us up and trying to wake us up. Answering your question, really, this is the reason I coined the term digital colonization about 20 years back, because it's not just about the Indian government. It's also about the fact that there is a mechanism by which technology is prevented from going out of the Western world. And that's something China woke up to in around 2004. And they decided that they will break through that ceiling and become a leader in technology. And in the next 15 years, they did that. The point is that this is a long-term goal. It takes a lot and continuous investments. And there needs to be restructuring also in the education. I can go into details. Let me take one simple example as to what I mean by changes in education. When somebody goes for as simple thing as a PhD, they would do a PhD in an area which they find fancy of based on a paper in some US university randomly. It is not based on what work has been done by the previous student under the same guide. So the same guide is producing PhD students in 5 different areas or sub areas, and therefore we end up being a guru of none of those areas. And I can take up names of universities after universities in US which are doing nothing but one single research. For example, database is only Wisconsin for that matter, and so on and so forth. So there are various universities which are deeply focused on technologies, and therefore they become the gurus. The same model is being followed in China. Also, I think one of the main wake-up calls, not just for India, but rest of the world, is the fact that there is a monoculture of technology. This is not about the issue that technology cannot go wrong. It does, right? Rockets blow up, accidents happen, automated cars go and hit people. So all of that happens. But it doesn't happen at a mass scale. We need to wake up and see exactly what really hit us. What hit us in terms of the monoculture of technology was just the end devices. We could not access information and boot up our machine and access the backend. Now, there is a huge amount of open source software available out there. It takes a lot of, I think, will and regulatory push to make sure that we start adopting those. Please also do keep in mind that there is a tremendous amount of drainage of forex that's happening. There is a huge amount of import of software and software services that we're doing. We are very proud of the fact that we are creating software for others, and I would not undermine that for a second. It's a tremendous achievement that we have. But under that garb, we are ignoring the fact that we are also importing a lot of software, a lot of compute, which is quite unnecessary. In fact, we could be the ones who would be exporting this software and these compute. And to the extent, as I mentioned, many of this software is freely, openly available. We need companies which simply provide us the support. And a quick blunt question is, why don't our existing large behemoth of IT companies come in and provide support for these open source technologies? What prevents them? And what prevents them is, again, the digital colonization, which is a way that the trade rules are structured against the developing countries and against those countries which don't have the technology.
Yes.
A short time, so I cannot go into the details of what this really constitutes. But as a response, China did get their act together and become a leader in technology. I think nobody will disagree with me that China has become a leader in multiple areas of technology. There is no reason why we cannot copy that, why we cannot adopt those policies and again become a leader. Also, the last part of the wake-up call is that what happened by accident can also be done by design.
Precisely my point, right? I feel that most people who are coming with IT expertise are only telling everyone that, listen, it was just a glitch. This can happen. It's a human error. That's not the point. All of us know what's happened. We're talking about safeguarding ourselves in the future. That's the conversation that we need to be having a week later. Or are we going to continue saying that, okay, it was just a simple glitch. This can happen with anyone. That's not the point.
Absolutely. So if I may just close it, that this is not something futuristic or warmongering. There are precedents, and I can tell precedents after precedents. Iran was deprived of Microsoft solutions for decades under the Patriot Act, and therefore Iran, in fact, became a leader in open source adoption because they did not have any other option. So in a strategic situation, there could be easily a possibility that switching off the technology access for India in terms of maps, which already happened during Kargil war, or in terms of simple access to our PCs and laptops and so on and so forth, will bring the country down to its knees. While our troops are fighting on the border, the commerce will stop because we'll not be able to access the payments, will not be able to access our information, and that's going to be seriously detrimental for the country.
Absolutely, precisely, and thank you, Jaideep Bhattacharya, for bringing that point up as well. I want to bring in Kanish Gaur into the conversation as well. Kanish, what is your take on the conversation that we've had so far? What do you feel could be the possible next steps that India needs to take? Because like Mr. Bhattacharya also pointed out, that right now it's a possible human error. It's a simple glitch, but in the future it could be very well designed to impact the entire flow of information inside your country.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest aspects is to build a product-oriented economy. We are a colonized service economy. If any money is given from the government to build any kind of operating system or any kind of cyber technology, the money goes to Indian Institute of Eminence, which is IITs. And startups have to go behind them. There are thousands of crores which goes to IIT professors. Can IIT professors build the tech for tomorrow for this country? Will they build the future, or will they be focused on research? That's a clear gap. I have been working with Government of India for past 5 years. Every time there's a new project, it will go to an academic institution of eminence. It will not go to the startup world. The startup world in this country is deprived of any kind of opportunity. That's why companies like Infosys, TCS, Wipro, HCL look to the Western world, because there is smooth flow of money. There is ease of doing business. I'm sorry, but the ease of doing business specifically on creating products in the cybersecurity space or deep technology space is pathetic. The Principal Scientific Advisor's Office has sanctioned 1,000 crores for building up an AI and quantum mission. Where this will money land? This money will land with academic institution of eminence, with professors. There is no way this money is going to come to the industry or the startup. That's why most of the students who come out of IIT are more interested in working with Western countries, Western companies, and looking for H-1B visas or traveling overseas, because the domestic market is pathetic when it comes to innovation, when it comes to creating real world products. So we are far away from creating our own domestic operating system today. The domestic operating system was created by IIT Chennai, called as BOSS. No one adopted it. The CDACs of the world create technology, but no one adopts, because there are very few users who want to take it. There is a big gap between what the government wants to create versus the reality on ground. Unless you don't get the startups involved as part of the digital ecosystem, it's very difficult to create that kind of economy and the scale. So we are far away from creating our operating system, which China has created like Kylene, or what Russia has created like Astra. So instead of talking, the time is to do something on ground. Most of the youth today is involved in creating reels on social media platforms, and they get called in as VIPs to support the narrative, but not the startup founders. That's the sad reality. Everybody wants to become a social media influencer today. People who want to do the hard work on building products have very little support. All the money is American money, which comes from venture capitalists from US. And all companies who are creating products in India move up to the US or to Singapore or to Europe to have their headquarters. And that's the reality.
Okay,
Okay,
Okay, Wing Commander Sudhakaran, would you agree with that analysis? That so essentially, money is money the only issue, and if money is not the issue, and there is money allocated for certain projects, is it truly then just going to institutes, to professors, to students in those institutes, and not enough is being sent the way of the startups?
See, let me again, amplify what my fellow co-panelists have said. Jajita has brought out, a whole new realm of, it's a Pandora's box that we have opened today by discussing about this.
Yes, and I wish we had more time, because he's raised some really crucial points, especially about, when he talked about the Kargil war. I feel most people today are not even aware of what happened, and therefore they take it so lightly when they say on panels or when they say in the media that it's just a simple glitch, and this, even if we were to build our own systems, an Indian could also make that glitch happen. That's really not the point. But sir, continue, please.
If Prime Minister Modi happens to see this, I would advise him that your top bureaucrats are the biggest culprits in this. And I can single them out by name, giving them examples, instances of what they've quoted when and where, and why they are the biggest challenge and hurdle in India's growth story. Point number one. Number two, let me tell you, as a software developer, my firm develops software, let alone government grants. I can't go to a bank for funding of a software program. My client was willing to, sign the document, which the banks have refused, because, this is not in place or that is not in place. The environment is so hostile to building anything deep tech or stealth tech. If you build a Zomato or a Uber or a Ola, you will get money, right? As long as you can fool the people around, take money from the market and then subsidize the customer, create more customers, show fake growth, that story sells. But if you say that I am going to build the next GPT for India, you know what your own guys tell? It is simply impossible. Forget it. Don't make it. Or you will have to, cut your head, place it on a platter and tell that this is the assurance or the, mortgage that I'm going to give for the loan that I'm going to seek. That is the sad reality of the country today. Coming to the point, I will again reiterate one more thing. This particular event was a stupidity of sorts. Stupidity cannot have safeguards. We can only feel sorry about it. So let's not make too much out of this balloon, because this was done by a foreign vendor. We need to institute safeguards against stupidity. But when it comes to building technology for India, yesterday India had a choice of buying these technologies from outside and using it. But in an increasingly intelligence-dominated world, which unfortunately the decision makers are not able to understand, intelligence, I reiterate, digital intelligence is the only technology you cannot buy and use. Because in traditional cybersecurity, you had what is called as a zero-day vector. When it comes to AI, the zero-day vector transforms itself and becomes what is called an intent vector. Intent vector is the same intent that a human being has. I cannot tell what your intent is today at this point of time or tomorrow what it will be. Similarly, an intent vector cannot be identified by any kind of tool, because the intent vector is so nebulous, so amorphous, and so stealthy to begin with, it will be literally impossible to actually talk about it.
Right.
That is why the only way that you can have reasonable control on technology is go behind technology your own way. 2021, I brought in, Jajita also mentioned about this, 1998, China decided to build what is called as the Great Golden Wall. That was a project, which was conceptualized to ensure that the Googles of the world don't get into a communist regime like China, conduct a psyops and then break that country. That's why we have the Alibaba, the Tencents, the Baidus, the Huawei's, and the Xiaomi's of the world in China. India didn't think about it then, obviously for valid reasons, because, we had a government which had the fetish of only buying from outside so that, kickbacks can come easily. But now you're talking about a government with a difference. You're talking about a clean governance. But then still, you are not changed. Your ways have not changed. I'm not questioning the intent of the government, but the policies of the government are not in place. I need to criticize that. If you don't put your policy in place, you are going to pay big time, because the only choice that we have today is bank on Prime Minister Modi. And if it doesn't happen under Prime Minister Modi, I think we will have to look for probably Kailasa as a place wherein, opt for citizenship and build our technology there.
All right.
That is
I'm going to last word with Dhruv Bhutani. Dhruv, just a last quick word from you.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm in agreement with everything that Wing Commander has said. I think when I initially said that these problems can happen, I think what I meant to say was that this incident alone cannot be an impetus for for India to wake up and start building software. Sure, India is building software, but this is a decades-long process to reach the kind of software independence that we're talking about. When you look at China, they've been at it for decades. There is a
absolutely, and when somebody says that we need to start, that just means we need to start. No one's saying that India is some magical land where everything will happen, say, in 5 years. This is not a 5-year plan.
Except
this is a plan
about starting
for
forever,
perpetuity
and
now.
We're all about the propaganda. We have come out with an Android alternative, when it is basically just a spoke of existing Android. We talk about becoming a semiconductor power overnight. We're talking about a 20 nanometer semiconductor. China's at 3 nanometers. Sure, we got to start somewhere, but I guess have a little more humble outlook towards it. Don't go ahead and say that you're just going to become an overnight superpower.
But
that's
not
what
I'm trying to understand. Who has said that?
Well, that's what the government talks about.
Okay, all right. I'm going to need the last word with Mr. Jayajit Bhattacharya. Mr. Bhattacharya, is that because I feel the government doesn't talk about it at all.
Yeah, let me take a quick example to show what the government has done. 10 years ago, we were nowhere in electronics. We were nowhere in mobile phone manufacturing. In 2024, we're the second largest manufacturer of mobile phones in the world. So clearly, when the government decides, it gets done, and we have the ability, we have the resources and the manpower to be able to do it. And I think the point that the Wing Commander is probably making is that it's high time that we wake up and we take these calls and we back it up with policies and regulations, which ensure that initiatives such as Ola Maps are a success. Obviously, Ola Maps will face a lot of challenges, but it needs to get the kind of support that Baidu in China did, and a whole bunch of other entities in China got
precisely, right? Precisely, and that's what a lot of users of Ola Maps have also said, that listen, your system is not perfect. We would wish that you would go back to Google Maps as the software, because that was, of course, way smoother. But as Mr. Bhattacharya is also pointing out, that the money has to go in for them to become smoother in their operations.
Absolutely. Money and the policies. For example, why is it that our children are not taught in open source in their schools? So, the education system from the school onwards needs to be fixed. And I'm glad to now note that it has been fixed. And we did work extremely hard at the CBSE level to make sure that those changes happen. But for a very long time, the board just would not move and was teaching Microsoft to the children, who would then grow up and say, I can only do Microsoft. And the companies would say, oh, well, we can't hire anyone else but Microsoft folks, because that's the only skill available. So we were getting caught up in that whole slavery model, if I can call it, and that's where the term digital colonization was created, because we were trapped. And in order to get out of that, we need to change our education system, our policies, our regulations, and back up our companies. And trust me, technology is a tough road, as everybody has said, and there will be glitches, but we need to back them up till the time the glitches are ironed out. We have the ability to do it. We have the market to do it. And we are paying that money to other companies, which is draining from our economy. We need to make sure that money stays within our economy, and we get more jobs over here.
Right, absolutely. I'll leave the last 30 seconds with Kanish Kaur.
Yes. So I think one of the key aspects is that when we are talking about building products or companies like CrowdStrike, you need the support of the government to build that kind of technology. And you also need to have a domestic market and a policy to enable that. I'm sorry, there has been a paralysis when it comes to some of these policies. We don't have our IT laws updated, the cyber laws, the Digital India Act hasn't come up. The cybersecurity strategy of this country is awaited for the last 5 years. Unless we don't make the policy changes and create ease of doing business, specifically on building domestic tech, I don't think so we will reach that stage to create companies like CrowdStrike and the country. I forget even reaching up to a Microsoft level. So very important that you have the support of the government and you have the right public-private partnership in place to build any kind of software product, which is to support the domestic market and then export overseas.
Absolutely. I've run out of time, but I thank all of our experts and panelists for joining us to take that conversation forward, and hopefully this will possibly serve as a wake-up call for India.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.